Hey, what's up, nerds? Paul Conti here at Radio Free Hammer Hall, and today I am bringing you a rant. Yes, I am going to give you a rant about why everybody is fucking wrong about spamming Putrid Blightkings all over the place. No, just before we even get started, don't do this. I was just spitballing lists and came up with a list that is one hero and 75 Blight Kings. And somebody out there is going to think that that is a great idea. And it's not. It is just not a good plan. There's several things that I think people are doing wrong. And I really want to address that and get people to move more towards more diversified lists because I think a Blightking Spam list is really good at a short list of things, and it's not going to give you the sort of dynamic play that you really need, and it leaves so many tools on the table that Nurgle has to offer. So the tendency to want to spam things is just sort of out there, especially right now with Tabletop Simulator being like the thing. People can just put together a list with 75 Kings and not have to worry about owning, building, and painting all of them. So that is something that we can look at first of all, is that maybe some of this talk about all of the Putrid Blightkings in a list is not really a thing. There's also varying degrees of Putrid Blightking spam. So there's some people that will literally just go one hero and all the Blightkings in some organization of different unit sizes. Some people will go, okay, Lord of Blights, Blight Cyst, all the Blightkings. Some people might go two heroes. You know, I want a utility hero and I want a hero that can cast spells. So I'm going to take two heroes and then a bunch of Blightkings. Or I'm going to take Gutrot Spume to dump Blightkings in my opponent's backfield. All of these are generally good ideas, except the sheer quantity of Blightkings that are being used. All of these things are good components to a list, but not on their own make a good list. So what am I talking about here? The problem with the Blightking spam list is that you're really limiting the power and versatility of your army. You're almost always abandoning control of the cycle of contagion, which is a major problem because that's one of the most useful tools you have in the army. You're not really doing much in the way of guaranteeing your summoning, guaranteeing your contagion points every turn, so you can't rely much on bringing things back on the board. You have no support pieces, no buff pieces, no synergies. And although Blightkings can be very fast, they're usually in a way where it's like one unit is very fast this turn. Everybody else is stuck out there being movement for chumps that get +1 to run in charge. So you have a very slow moving army, and yes, 21 wounds for 5 is a lot of wounds. You're putting a lot of wounds on the board. Yes. You're not putting a lot of bodies on the board. Even in the most extreme spammy version of this, where you're running 76 models, it's not really a lot of models on the board. A truly high model count army is going to still overwhelm you. You know, Gits are going to overwhelm you. Skaven's going to overwhelm you. So that's not even really something to be thinking about. There's only a few lists, a few armies that are sort of in the middle that maybe this build will jump over them in model count. But it's not even going to be that significant. When you're that close to begin with, the change in model count isn't going to do that much for you. So you have a body count problem. And you have a lot of models that are going to stand around and do nothing because they need to guard objectives. You have, frequently, this is a complete other side rant, people taking units of 20 because units of 20 get a fairly steep discount. A unit of 20 is basically never going to get all 20 guys into combat at the same time, and those units are grinders. They grind down slowly. So having all of those extra models is not doing you any good. It's just wasted points sitting at the back of a unit when it could just be another unit that's off to the side somewhere else doing something more important. That this one unit of, say, 10 has your opponent really tied up, and then you have a unit of 5 swinging around the other side, and this other unit of 5 guarding an objective. That's a much better use of 20 Blight Kings than sticking them all in one blob and sending them in a Death Star at your opponent. And the Death Star build is what some people are doing, is taking a Lord of Blights and units of 20 and going everybody is -1 to hit them and -2 in shooting. And you just have this one big Death Star marching across the board. Well, first turn it'll kind of zoom across the board, and then it'll march slowly across the board. And there's a lot of scenarios where you need to be mobile. You need to be able to sort of pick up and run in another direction. You need more board coverage. Using units of 20 really limits your mobility because, number one, you have to fit a unit of 20 snaking through terrain. Depending on the board you're playing on, that can be a problem. And it's also condensing where your models are. You have fewer units, so you're spread out much more thinly across the board, even though your model count's higher. So, in general, units of 20, I never ever do that. I would never go more than 10, to be totally honest. I have had so many instances where I have a unit of 10 and I charge them in somewhere, and even if it's like a clear, easy charge with no terrain in the way, I'm not able to get all 10 in. So it's, I think, just wasteful to go in units of greater than 10. And that kind of brings us back to, well, why are we spamming these Blight Kings at all? They're a good deal. But just because you have a good deal doesn't mean that that's your only option. There's a lot of other good deals available to Nurgle. Being able to take a mounted Chaos Lord and a unit of 10 Chaos Knights and a Sorcerer and cast Blades of Putrefaction on the Knights and run them across the table and Alpha Strike your opponent with 50 attacks doing mortal wounds on 5s is really strong. It's really hard to contend with that. There's plenty of other things. I just recorded a video on Puskwale Blightlords. They're just like this golden nugget that everybody seems to think sucks. But in a list that's being built carefully, and you're thinking about all of the different phases of the game and what the point of the game is, which is capturing objectives, it's something like a Puskwale Blightlord is much more useful to you in a lot of situations than Blight Kings are. Why? They move fast and they fly. Blight Kings are generally slow and they're foot sloggers. So it's... I don't know at what point it becomes excessive. What is too many Blight Kings? I will tell you that I have 30 painted, and I have 15 more that are not painted yet. They are built. Part of owning them was wanting to do more conversions and interesting paint jobs on them. So there's a thought in there that I own 45, 30 are painted, and the rest are kind of a passion project. And I've been very successful all along with that lineup, even when Blight Kings were more expensive. So, what do you get out of a, an army when you're running 50 Blight Kings, 60 Blight Kings? What is that really giving you? What are you giving up? You're giving up control of the cycle of contagion. You're frequently giving up magic. You're going to give up a lot of good command abilities. There's all kinds of synergies you're giving up on. Um, if you go too far into it, you don't have a battalion. Yes, you can make a Blight Cyst list that is just a Lord of Blights and a Sorcerer and a Harbinger of Decay and all the Blight Kings and have a one drop list, and it's a list, right? And it may not even be that half bad because you have a couple of support pieces. But overall, it's still like ridiculously like one track thinking. Like Blight Kings move forward and they punch, and then they take a punch, and then they punch, and then they take a punch. They're a grinder unit. They're not there to alpha strike your opponent and take stuff out. They're not there to just be an absolute anvil and stick around forever. They're kind of middle of the road on both and priced well for it. So it's really a thing when Blight Kings went down in points, everybody seemed to want to just go, I'm running all the Blight Kings now. They are so awesome. They are such a good deal. But that's really one-dimensional thinking. I think what you really should look at that points reduction as, my Blight Kings are all cheaper. What else can I fit in my army now? And the answer is not more Blight Kings. So anyway, guys, that's my rant on Blight Kings. I still love them. I play lots of them. Just don't run 75, please. So yeah, that's it. I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of hate in the comments. Feel free to thumbs down as much as you like. That counts as interaction on YouTube, so that's actually good for the channel. As always, like, subscribe, or dislike. I will gladly take the hate on this one. And Patreon down in the description, and I'm done shilling. I'll talk to you later.